Welcome to all the participants to the inaugural session of the AICTE sponsored training program on IoT powered solutions for healthcare innovations. I take this opportunity to thank AICTE for sponsoring this event, the chairman AICTE and the director of faculty development cell for taking this initiative for training the faculties across India on the various upcoming topics. We are proud and glad to have amongst us a very renowned person for the inaugural keynote session. Let me share a few details about our speaker for the inaugural session. Our speaker for today is Mr. S.A. Srinivasa Moorthy, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the session. Sir is an electronic engineer by heart and a CXO level professional by experience. Sir is an MTech from NIT Surathkal with over 3 decades of experience in the IT industry as head, leader and technocrat in the electronic product design, manufacturing and engineering. He was earlier the Chief Executive Officer of the Andhra Pradesh Electronics and IT Agency, spearheading the investment in electronics and IT sector in the state. Sir is a founder, director of D4X Technologies and co-founder of Nime Robotics and takes care of design engineering. He has led the design of complex products across different industries like automobile, avionics, medical devices, industrial, telecom, and networking that meet the global standards. He has set up global design centers and strategic organizations for MNCs and state governments. Moorthy sir has set up India's first private test laboratory for product testing and verification. Currently, sir is working on social robotic products, biometric products for secure applications, modular platform including hardware software co-design for connected electric vehicles. Sir is also a passionate teacher. Sir has been teaching BE and PG courses in the Indian Institute of Information Technology for Design and Manufacturing. Sir is an active contributor in electronic magazines and international conferences. Sir has been nominated as one of the top 100 EMS professionals in the world in 2012 by Venture Outsourcing. Sir has been very successful in building large teams which generate multi-billion dollar revenue. Sir, we are very happy and over to you, sir, to share regarding the opportunities and challenges in the IoT for healthcare industry.
Yeah. And how a healthcare solution looks, and how you merge these two to create a IoT-based solution. Next slide. So this one, when you get a time, you please see. This is a classic issue happened 2 weeks back, where your Fitbit, the girl and the boyfriend both had synchronized their calories burned into the application, and this girl figured out at 2 o'clock in the night. Boyfriend was very active, and then through the application, because the Fitbit gave a alert to both. So the funnier side is, if you have a connected healthcare system, can also lead to funny thing. You please visit to the web link and read. It's a very good article. Next. So today, the way we define healthcare is it's more towards the customer. It's not more towards the hospital. It's more towards the customer. Most of your regular devices like blood pressure monitor, temperature, wristbands, everything are getting connected. And there are mobile applications which can give a lot of applications in terms of fixing appointments and managing your day-to-day health data and all this stuff. The third one is applications which just purely work on your medical records. What are the tablets you have taken over a period of time? How many X-rays you have taken? And then the fourth one is the one which takes the medical real-time data. You know, today you get special wristbands for heart patients, which monitors their heartbeat as well as their blood pressure. on a runtime basis, and if they finds a different, immediately alerts the doctor. Then the last one is the one which is into the hospital, where there are data sensors meant for monitoring the patient parameter and fuse them. In the sense, like if today you can, I don't know how many of you know, there is a company called Perfintech. They basically attach a robot to the CT scanner, and when you are taking the CT scan for a cancerous lesion, this robot will take data from the CT scanner and extract the sample exactly from the lesion, which some time back was not there. We need to open up and then take the sample. Today it inserts a needle and takes the sample out. So today's healthcare is uh, three things. One, monitor the patient. Second, uh, add value to the data that is collected. Third, bring data from multiple sources to bring value to the patients. Next slide. So what is the current situation? It is we are looking at treatments. Now focus on acute care. You could have seen during COVID, everybody talked about ventilator. Finally, India did not use even 1% of what was produced, and mostly on volume based. And patients are responsible for their health. Yeah, what I say is you have to go to the doctor. There is no proactive way of telling you that there is some challenge that you have to go back and visit the doctor. And there is no consistency in treatment, which is the most worrying factor. And the quality of service is dependent by the doctor and the hospital. Next. But what is needed? It is basically the end delivery. Emphasis is on proactive care. That means if my heartbeats and blood pressures are continuously monitored, I will be able to predict or even figure out before a heart attack or a blood pressure stroke comes, and then take remedial measures. And then just go back. And the other thing is the standard of treatment becomes consistent because the data that is collected is consistent across the board. So the treatment that you get is also across the board. In fact, the classic case is today, if you see Chennai is still a headquarters for medical tourism, is simply because of the doctors. Once the doctors are good, then the hospitals become good, and then so which is something which I know if you want to scale the healthcare across larger population cannot happen. So the next. So this is the next thing that where we call it as a digital hospital. So can you just start? From a regular hospital, these are the three things that are going to be different. You have devices connected, you have patient care systems connected, you also have social media and cloud, which fuse all this data and then give you a completely different exposure. So let's get to the, before even getting into details, let us get to the classic IoT. So in IoT, can you press the tab? So you get the sensors and things, which could be for your easier thing. I would suggest your wristbands, which we all wear, is treated as a thing. Then for the thing does not have a connectivity to a network or anything. So you need a gateway. Then the gateway takes your data to the internet. Then the data through the internet goes to the cloud and the applications. So typically, you will see a four-layer IoT architecture. Next slide. Yeah, you can see from here. So on the left, you see the things. On the next is the gateway. Then you have the network, which could be your mobile network, which could be your LAN, and then you have a internet and a cloud. And remember, in your wristband application, your mobile phone is the gateway, because the wristbands do not have a network connectivity per se. They all have is only a Bluetooth connection. So the mobile phone takes the data from through the Bluetooth, but then connects it to the network through a GSM or a Wi-Fi. So you typical IoT application will have a four layer. You have a thing, you have a gateway, you have a service provider, and you have a cloud. And remember, there is a differentiation coming now. The cloud and the applications are different. The cloud service provider gives you storage of data. We will see both Amazon is giving today, Microsoft is giving. But then if you want to make sense out of the data, you have to write an application for that. So these are different today. Next time. So what are the challenges we get? The one is, and when you use it in a healthcare, you need a 24/7. That means your hardware, your battery, your power, everything needs to be rated for that. And most of the things, even today, are not IP enabled. That means they cannot be directly connected to the network. That means you need a gateway which connects a non-IP world to an IP world. So when many applications today use Android as a gateway because it's easier to implement and it is cost effective. You do have, like if you are looking at a larger hospitals and other stuff, you do dedicated gateway products which are different. Next. So how do we define a medical device? Medical device, it either monitors or measures, that is from a patient perspective, or for the physicians and the paramedics, it helps them to do their job. And then for surgeons, they use these devices to do the surgery. Like Da Vinci is one example, which is a robot which operates on the patient, but the control is with the surgeon. So you can reach precision, but controlled by a human. So one of the key challenges when we get into health worry, medical device development, unfortunately, is a completely regulated industry. In the sense, there are set of processes, procedures, documentation that you have to do before you can get it deployed in the market. Next slide. So what we do is we classify the medical devices into three groups. So you have class one, which we all know like thermometers, stethoscopes. How do we define class one? Even if the device goes bad, there is no harm to the patient. Then you have class two, where it has got a A and B. But effectively, these class two devices might harm the patient in the sense some kind of an injury, but can never result in fatality. But class three is like your implantable, your pacemakers, those kind of devices. These are devices, if they fail, they can result in fatality. So what happens is, the way you get approvals for class 1, 2, and 3, the complexity increases as the classes go up. So a class 3 device can today take easily 3 to 4 years. So many times you will be wondering why there is devices are expensive. It's simply because approval process takes so much of time. It takes a minimum 3 to 4 years for a class 2, and a class 3 sometimes can go all the way to 7 years. And remember, there is a downside to it. What happens when approval cycle takes longer? Components used in the product might become obsolete. So the designer needs to now worry about use a product which can be which will be available even after the longer approval period. That's number one. And number two, which many entrepreneurs today have forgotten, is you can't use any of the operating systems, which includes Linux or Microsoft Windows or even Android, as such in a medical device. If you want to use a commercially available operating system in a device or in an medical application, you have to subject it to a standard test procedure, and the results have to be submitted to prove that the OS is compliant to the application that you are developing. This means it takes a lot of time to validate. I have worked with my Windows, I worked with Android. Typically, validating the operating system takes about 2 years. This many entrepreneurs have forgotten this. Then they say, no, government is not supporting. Government cannot support when there is a mandatory process. So, and Android based, in fact, I do know there is a uh, ECG monitor company which developed a 7-inch Android based application, has to wait for 4.5 years before they were approved. I mean, it is actually a class 2B device, but they forgot totally that the OS has to be validated. And remember, you can't update the OS on its own. Every time you update the OS, you have to do the same verification and validations, which is making it very difficult. I don't know how many of you know, one of the leading ultrasonic uh, scanner vendor, even today uses Windows 95 because he has a source code, he has developed it, he has not upgraded his application to other Windows later upgrades. He stays with 95, it does the job what he wants. I mean, one of the big ones. Since I have worked with them, I know. They bought the source code. They don't want to waste time in going for a newer validation. So they stayed with the old Windows 95. Next slide. So remember, this is a process that you have to follow. The biggest thing that you will see is the blue bar. Every stage of development has to be thoroughly reviewed. We never do that in a regular product development. But in medical product, you have to review, review records have to be maintained, and you also need to prove that the faults that were found out in the previous stage has been solved, and the report for the solved version also should be recorded. So this makes the development itself almost 3 to 4 times larger, and you need to do documentation. See, unfortunately, our education system does not teach this. We have biomedical electronics, biomedical engineering, electronics engineering, but we never teach them that how to do a review and how to design a product which can be reviewed easily, which can be verified easily. This is what is making a lot of difference between Western world and India. Despite we can design good hardware and software products, we are very weak in product quality. We think customer will come back and tell us where the problems are, which is not right. So the review process needs to be built in. It's very easy. If you have been a device designer, the first thing that you will do is you will collect requirements. So which says what the product should do with a numbered requirements. So the moment you have the requirements, you just need to test it against each requirement. So it is just a question of being disciplined. That's all. Next slide. So here you see the development process, how it works. I don't want to give you the details of each of these blocks, but you see on the top right, there is something called as FDA. It's basically Food and Drug Administration of American government. So every medical device, healthcare application need to get approval from this agency. Otherwise, you won't be able to sell. And remember, if I am designing a TV, there is no agency to tell me how to qualify or why to qualify. But for a medical device, it is not the case. And remember, come this June, we will see the same situation in India. So far, it was not there because medical devices used to be covered under pharmaceutical ministry. Now there is a new department that has come, Department of Medical Devices. So from June this year onwards, the process for developing a medical device will be the same, probably very close to what FDA is doing. The equivalent of FDA in Europe is called as CE. That's all. So globally, medical devices are a regulated industry, and typically the cycle time of a simple product will take 2 years. That's one of the reasons why medical devices tend to cost a lot, because it takes so much of the development time to develop a product. That means you end up ultimately recovering that cost for that long development only from the product costing, which is very close to the pharmaceutical industry. But we keep tripping about the manufacture of product or raw material in a pharmacy probably is very cheap, but to reach there they would have spent millions of dollars, which nobody understands. So the one other problem that we keep seeing is people see the raw material cost and say 1 rupee raw material is being charged 15 rupees, but out of which I can tell you 7 to 8 rupees will be the R&D cost that has been invested that needs to be taken out. Next slide. So, if you are looking at IoT and the healthcare, where does it start? See, most customers, in my experience, has been biggest thing is they want to reduce the cost. Let us take for example of how it can be applicable in a very low level healthcare. Let's say I need to take a BP every day, 3 times a day. Imagine, should I go to a nurse? Should I go to a doctor 3 times a day, every day, or just wear a band which actually measures my BP, even not three, right, even probably every hour, and then ships the data to the cloud. Now the challenge is how, if I ship the data to the cloud, then how it reaches the cloud. That's precisely where IoT gets into picture. Second is the improved efficiency, which you can see if I am able to get data on a 1 hour basis, I will be able to tell which work is adding stress to me, which for time of the day you probably have a higher blood pressure, and it will be much more easier for the doctor to give you a diagnosis as well as a treatment. Third is a very important thing. I keep collecting data. Why would I collect only BP? I could probably collect oxygen. I could collect heart rate. What it allows me is to correlate these two to see when I have a BP shot up, is my heartbeat okay? Is my blood oxygen okay? Which we don't do today. Today, every disease is treated for its symptom, not for the disease, because it's not holistic. So, what the key challenge in IoT is it allows you to access multiple data, reduce the cost, and also collect more data to make sense out of the end result. Next. Just one, go back. So, how do we build an IoT solution? IoT is not a rocket science, let me tell you. We have been working with that individually in silos. Today we are putting all of them together. Let's say sensing and measuring. Imagine if I have a wristband which picks up, let's say, 4 to 5 parameters. If I do not have a mobile phone which can pick up that application, then my data is of no good, right? So the second thing is how do I collect and transport? Third is how do I analyze? See, as we go along, the biggest value add from IoT in healthcare will come from how the data is analyzed and the results are predicted. Uh, the sensing, probably collection of data, devices are probably a lesser of a challenge. The bigger challenge is how do you make sense out of the data that you have collected? Next slide. Yeah. So, what are the challenges today? Today, let's assume the example of a wristband. What happens if I don't charge it properly? The biggest problem is I will not be able to get data. What happens if I leave my mobile phone and then and go for a walk, which normally I do, and then I wear a band? If it detects an anomaly, There is no way it can send. That means the connectivity to the cloud needs to be there. Then the third, what do the cloud does? Cloud takes the data from you and keeps it. So there should be an application which keeps monitoring your data and alerts your doctor, saying, okay, this guy has got a anomaly in the BP, just see. So the doctor gets back to you or the hospital gets back to you. So the challenges that we face is, one is the power for the sensor, second is the communication, third is the application which can use the data and give you an alert. So if you are trying to create a solution, you have to factor these three before you even finalize on your solution. Then the last one, which is becoming very critical, which you all probably will be familiar, is the security. That's the biggest headache today. Your health data has to be secure, because uh, if somebody else takes it, uh, the issue is it can play havoc with uh, in terms of your insurance, and or the way people can target you. Everything changes. In fact, in USA there is a standard called HIPAA, HIPPA. Every IT application for healthcare has to comply to this. This actually is a information security standard specifically targeted for healthcare. So, which is becoming a standard all over the world. So, the key is the security of the data that is collected or the data that is being transmitted, both have to be taken care. Next. So what makes up an IoT solution? So it is a set of sensors, electronics, the communication medium, the cloud infrastructure, and an application. And remember, what you can control is only the sensor and the electronics as a developer. The communication medium, you will use what is available. Cloud infrastructure, you will use what is being sold. Application is the other one which you will develop. So, if you look at the entity, there are only two parameters which are out of our control, but they are very critical. That is the communication medium and the cloud infrastructure. So, when you are developing a healthcare solution, the key is you need to remember which communication medium I will use and which infrastructure I will use, so that all the data that I am producing reaches the cloud infrastructure. Cloud has got enough space to store. Then the remaining things can be easily built. So many times I have seen. I recently I saw one startup, came with a very good medical device, but it had only a Wi-Fi interface. The entire application is developed is based on a IP interface. So I casually asked them, what happens if you take it on a mobile platform, like a ambulance or something like that? He didn't have an answer. Okay, so finally we found out a way of using a modem, GSM to Wi-Fi modem. But the challenge was, now a cost of 3,000 rupees got added to this device, which made it unviable. So we need to be very careful when we design products. Uh, the solution it has to be end to end. This is something which many developers forget. Next slide. So when we say in IoT for a healthcare application, it is thing is nothing great. It is just the biomedical device which you are using to monitor, measure, collect data. The rest of the things remains more or less the same. But the reliability of these devices need to be meet the medical grade requirements, and also you need to design in the device. Let's say, I'll give you a good example. Let's say one of the device that you have developed has space only for 12 data sets. But then what happens is you are reaching a place where there is no gateway, there is no connectivity, but you are okay to collect the data. That means now you do not have space for more than 12. So you need to understand, if your device can work offline without connectivity, Then you also need to make provision so that when it is in the offline mode, it collects, stores the data, and then ships it the moment it gets connected. This many designers miss. And remember, things are the ones which will cost you a lot because I mean they sell in volumes. At the same time, they have to be frugal. This is other thing which people forget. Even today, if you see a wristband made in India will cost you 3,000 to 4,000 rupees, but then a Chinese one will cost you much less. It's simply because of this. Because we use processors which are expensive, which we really don't need to use. We could use the simpler ones. Next slide. So I don't want to get into it, but biomedical sensors are pretty much openly available in the sense many of the sensors are specifically designed for certain target. But that what we are seeing is especially in the orthopedic domain, a lot of commercial sensors are being used for exoskeletons and bionic arms. These are sensors not designed for medical application, but normally designed for a traditional application, and they are now used. So for example, let me tell you that we have used a stress sensor for measuring the breath rate of a dog. We built it in a collar, but then what we noticed was after 3 months, the sensor failed. So we looked at it, then we asked the sensor vendor. Then he told me the number of cycles that the sensor can undergo is only 3,000, which is so low. So if we need a higher sensor, which can have a longer life, means it is going to cost you a lot. So this is another thing which you have to keep in mind. You could use the commercially available sensors, but ensure that they are fit for biomedical applications. That is one of the reasons biomedical sensors are expensive. They are designed for longer endurance, longer duration, and also bio, they should be compatible to the human biology outside or inside. You do get nowadays smart sensors, digital sensors, but that doesn't really matter because it is the measurement of the parameter which is very key. Next. So I am just showing you how a biomedical device looks. The ones in the lighter yellow are the conventional biomedical devices where you have a communication interface. Because if, let's say, for example, if a washing machine, if you take, you don't really need a communication interface. It has just a display, probably couple of sensors inside and switches, but it doesn't need a communication interface. But most biomedical devices used for IoT will have a communication interface. What communication interface it has, it depends on how you implement the solution. Next one. And correspondingly, you please look at the software. I have mentioned here as a operating system, which is a standard thing. But you see what is critical, you will see a box called FOTA. This basically is a firmware over the air update. The same today IoT, the biggest advantage is if I am changing my software, I don't need to really worry. It just gets delivered over the air and gets updated. And remember, if I have to design a product which has to be updated over the air, the resources needed and the software design is completely different. Uh, just to explain, what you will do normally is first thing will be you will have two copies of the software, the current one and the previous one. That's the number. That means memory requirement has become double. Second, you need to now download the new version, and then you have to download fully into the -1 version. If there is a break, you have to go back and then restore the existing version. So your software development itself changes. Third, the moment you have done it, you have to update it, the, the new firmware, and you cannot have a power disruption. So if there is a power disruption, you will have a problem. I don't know if many of you have used Apple. When you have your phone battery charge is in the range of 20-30, it will always tell you please plug in your phone or let the battery charge be 70. That is meant for this only. So that when it is updating, it cannot lose power because your completely phone will get bricked. So software development for IoT application is changed. It is the people assume today the upgrades will come on its own, which you would have seen in any of your mobile applications or even in your laptop applications now, which is very critical. But in a laptop, it is okay because you have 8 GB memory, you have large flash memory or a hard disk. It's not an issue. But in a small device with a 8K, 4K RAM and ROM, you can't have this luxury. And remember, larger the RAM that you have in a device, the price goes up. You can, if you want to see, look at the microcontroller data sheet and look at the pricing of the controller as the flash and the RAM increases. You will see the price will be increasing almost by 30 to 40% for the next higher size. So that means you have to choose the right part and the right price. Next slide. So, can you flip to the next? Right, thank you. So, if you are doing healthcare in a hospital, there are two things that who will get impacted. One is the IoT, the hospital. First thing is you can do preventive maintenance. We have done for a couple of equipment. We know how much it saves. Let me give you a classic uh, medical device repair cycle. Let's say you have a X-ray machine and then it has gone down, and you call up and tell my machine is down because it's not working. Now the problem is when the engineer is coming, he needs to know which spare he has to bring because he doesn't know which has failed. But imagine if the same X-ray machine is connected to the network, what they do is they try to run the diagnostics. When they run the diagnostics, it tells you exactly which portion of the electronics or electrical has gone bad if the system is working. Let us say if there is a power failure and they are not able to log in, they know what to bring, so they bring. So the first thing that happens is, one, you know upfront what is the problem. So the service engineer brings the exact spare that needs to be repaired. We all would have seen many times in our home, the engineer will come, open it, and then he'll tell you, I don't have this board, I will go to the office, come back. You can avoid that. Because in US, what happens? One truck roll is roughly costing $100. So they don't want that to happen. Second, look at hospitals. If I have syringes, tablets, and everything, and if I am able to measure the quantity left automatically through RFID or anything else, once I set the threshold, it automatically triggers an order. You don't need to worry. So if syringes go below 20% inventory, the order goes to that. So the syringe company uh, shifts the syringes to you. By the way, I don't know how many of you know India was the capital for the COVID vaccine. But do you know that India is the capital for now syringes? There are a couple of companies in India in last March figured out if vaccine is being developed, you need syringes for injections. So they invested by August and September, they invested double the capacity, triple the capacity. And what they expected happened. They Their order books are full. One of the company, Hindustan Syringes, is a good friend of mine, and his plant runs 7 days a week, 3 shifts a day. He is still not able to meet the demand. He is making only 2 ml a syringe, but he says he doesn't have a capacity to make what is, because globally people have not built up capacity for syringes. So you see the opportunities how they come. Then scheduling the patients. Many times you will see that I have seen, when the doctor is in a surgery, he is not able to fulfill the appointment. And when he comes out of the theater, patient is already gone. So instead, imagine it schedules it in such a way, once the doctor gets out of the hospital, it sends a message to the patient saying, you come in the next 10 minutes, you can meet the doctor, you are safe. Similarly, for the patients, continuously monitor your health parameters. Many heart attacks happen without the patients knowing. First attack, many people.
Participants, kindly mute at your end.
So many patients, only the second attack, doctor says, did you have any discomfort? Sometime back, you will say yes. But if you have been wearing a sensor, which today is like a patch, you just put it like a band-aid and be done with that. It can precisely tell you that you have a minor stroke that is coming up, go to the doctor. And some of the patients like diabetic patients, they need to take a insulin injection, and many people don't like to inject themselves, so they go to an hospital. But there are devices today which you just wear it in your hand. Through your screen, it automatically delivers this thing. You don't need to even remember. You program it, it automatically keeps delivering the insulin to the body. Much bigger advantage is the rural health delivery. Today, many rural, especially in North, do not have doctors. But if you need to access to a specialist to see, you need implements which will help you. Today, you have remote stations, healthcare stations, which there are a lot of startups which are there. But then they need to be 100% reliable, and they should be able to communicate reliably. So one big advantage of IoT is it brings in an efficiency factor to the hospital. It brings a predictive factor to the patients. Next. So today's IoT in the healthcare sector, we have two options. One is to use the existing GSM. The second one is to use the existing internet, like your Hathways or ACTs or BSNL. So both are good. Next. So this one shows, okay, right. So how events happen in a IoT system? First is that there is a event which triggers. Let's say in the healthcare factor, let's say you are getting a BP shooting up. That means your wristband has to need to detect it. Then immediately measure it and then log it into the system, that is to your mobile phone, and mobile phone uploads it to the cloud. Then the application reads it, and then it finds from a previous data there is a shoot up in the BP. What it does, it sends you an SMS or something like that to tell you take this tablet based on your history. Then it also produces a report which you can take it to the doctor. Do you think today this is possible? We don't have a system to do that. The biggest advantage with the IoT is it's a structured event. That means you will be able to predict, take action, and also ensure it is followed up. Next. Yeah, I just showing you can tap on the so it will show you how the actions go. So you will see the path that it takes is very complex. So here is where the challenge is. What happens if your cable does not or internet does not work? what happens if you are not getting a GSM connectivity when you have a critical event? This is where you have to ensure that your devices has alternative ways of working or a better way of no, indicating the patient. Let's say I am not getting a GSM connection. So what should I do? My wristband or my mobile phone should give me an alarm saying there is an increase in BP. Please go to the hospital or take this tablet if you have a history. Even before the central system comes back and gives you this, because there is no connectivity. So look at the complexity of developing a healthcare application. It's the you have to plan for the proper working. You also need to plan for failure. So this is a difficult thing. Next. So one of the things that is happening is the cloud application, storage, and then even the network connectivity to a large extent is being taken over by vendors. So you can work with Amazon AWS IoT or Azure IoT. You get your solutions ready-made. So that means you focus only on the application and the device that you are designing. Next. And just for the context I have given, what you need to understand is the left box is what you have to do. The right one is provided by Amazon today. So that means to a large extent, you could even get some of the pre-canned dashboards. So you can build an healthcare application very quickly by focusing your proper device on the uh, as your application. Next. So there are like Amazon gives you a free RTAS. Imagine it gives you a free RTAS connected directly to the Amazon cloud. So if you use it in your thing or the medical device, you really don't need to worry about how to ship the data. All you need to do is to write the actual device application. Your connectivity and storage in the cloud is taken care automatically. Next. So if Amazon can do, then Microsoft can also do. So what you are seeing is what the Microsoft version of that. Go ahead. Okay, I will give two examples just to understand how that. This one is a well-known. Let's say you have a wristband-based IoT solution. So you could see from your wristband the data goes to a mobile phone, or it could go to a Wi-Fi. From there it goes to the cloud application. From there it informs the doctor, so the doctor can reach you, or the AI ML software can tell you you have an issue, either you go to a doctor or go to a treatment. Next. Sure. So look at the advantage. Ready availability. A wristband is very cheap and uses the existing network, easy to use program, accurate measurement, very low cost, and it can do a open source. But get to the disadvantage. You have to strike a balance. Depends on the battery, and you should wear it properly. Network access anywhere is the biggest thing. Data integrity. So what you measured is the same thing what is stored, which is very critical. And no data loss. That is what that happens many times. You think you have sent it, but the data did not reach the cloud. And if you are looking at a very critical application, probably this application is not good. This application. Okay, next. See, this is a very interesting application. I wanted to tell you how this solves the problem. This is a company which basically collects the bio waste from each hospital and then gives it to the incineration center. Today, what they do is they have a QR code and a sealed bag. People who go to every hospital collect this bag, weigh this bio waste, and read the barcode reader using a phone, and then enter the data, and then go and dispose it off. Now, what the problem this operator faced was, people who do this job are mostly illiterates. So that means their ability to read a uh, uh, mobile phone, smartphone, and application has always been a suspect. and they don't enter data properly. So what we did, we completely revamped the process. So this is basically no touch process. You have an application running, the balance is Bluetooth enabled, the uh, bio-waste bags are RFID enabled. So the moment this uh, boys who come to take it away, show the phone, it automatically reads the data. That is the RFID data and the balance data, sends it to the cloud, and they go and deliver it to the incineration center. Incineration correlates with this. I'll tell you why this correlation is needed. These bio-waste are split into two. Ones that can be recycled, ones that cannot be recycled. The recycled ones are burnt, but the recyclable ones has to be safely disinfected and then recycled. But many times these boys take these and sell it in the open market. Like they are typically syringes, bottles, IV tubes, and all those things. So the kind of the condition the government has given is whatever you have collected, it needs to be accounted for. Then the incineration center will decide whether to recycle or to dispose of. In fact, this has been done and it's working fairly well for the last 6 months. Next. So this is what I mentioned. See, I'll tell you. Can you believe an IoT solves a illiteracy problem? If right now I have a solution running in Bangalore, exactly the same. Even attendance, we have a facial recognition system. So he takes the phone, looks at it, attendance is marked with the time, then he starts working. He need not touch any of the compost and other stuff. Everything is measured through RFID. We have a balance with his Bluetooth enabled. So all data gets uploaded to the central cloud. So it is not that it is cheap or communication, but sometimes lack of skill also can be compensated by IoT. Especially in the healthcare, I'm seeing a lot because you do get people who that varied skill levels, but your applications need to work the same. Next. Oh, so this is the solution we built just to show you. Right. That's it. I'm done.
Participants, any questions, please do ask, or you can post the questions in the chat box. I hope you can unmute and you can ask your queries.
Yeah, I'm not able to chat box.
Sir, chat box, I am just going through that we have not received any. So anyone would like to interact with the speaker, they can unmute and do interact. So any of you would like to unmute and ask the doubts, please do. Sir, of course it was a wonderful session. Sir, thank you for the time. And in fact, accepting our invite in spite of your busy schedule, we know how you'll be spending. Since you are a founder of two companies, and sir, it was in fact a very interesting inaugural talk. You had given the introduction, and as far as I think you had even given an overview of the IoT architecture and the IoT signal flow with very good practical examples of a wristband and the bio-waste disposal system. And I found that what you had told about the challenges in IoT, about how to make sense of the data collected, that was very good point that you had shared with the participants. And in fact, the importance of security of medical data, sir. On behalf of the management of KCG College of Technology, all the faculty members and all the participants who have attending this session, as well as the entire team of KCG and from my side, sir, a very heartfelt gratitude for giving support to this event, sir.
Oh, thanks.
So thank you, sir. I would like to thank Ramya ma'am also
Oh, thanks.
for getting in your contact and without mentioning her, it would not be complete. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thanks.
So now over to the participants. You can meet back again at 2 o'clock. We will have a session by Dr. Sumit Dadak. Sir is from IIIT Delhi. And please join back on time. We will start the sessions at sharp 2 o'clock. And attendance is mandatory, which I had forgot to share with you during the inaugural session. The attendance of 80% is mandatory for certification. And there will be a test towards the 6th day, that's towards the end of the session. You will have a test in which you have to score at least 60% of the marks, okay, in order to be eligible for the certificate as well as the resource materials. So thank you all and have a great day.